bacon time, everybody. Welcome to Dads with Bacon Talking Sports for this May 30th, 2024. Happens to be my daughter and son's last day of school. Not sure when all your kids are getting out, but if they are out already, hopefully you're starting to enjoy the summer. And if not, you'll be enjoying the summer pretty soon. So today we're going to be talking about the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, both winding down here, getting ready for the finals, and each of those are getting close to it. We'll also be talking about some developments or latest news in the NFL and Major League Baseball. And then I also have a question I'm going to throw out to the guys on the show tonight, and I'm going to throw out to all of you. And we'll end the show with that. So without further ado, since we got started a little late here, I'm going to bring on the two guests with us tonight. We have Steve Vargo from Pittsburgh. Well, and what jersey are you wearing, Steve?
Aaron, I'm wearing, I think it wasn't a high point because they didn't win the game, but it was one of the recent high points in Pittsburgh Penguins lore recently, the 2023 Winter Classic jersey with the historic P logo from back in the 1930s when he's been in Pittsburgh for over 100 years. Hard to believe it, but it's a cool jersey to wear, and I thought I'd make my inaugural debut with you with something fun wearing tonight.
Nice. Yeah, we always love jerseys here on the show. And of course, I'm wearing a Mario Brothers shirt, so I'm not. I mean, that's what I'm like.
I'd be happy to switch into mine too if you want me to, Aaron.
And then we'll bring on Charles. Charles, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. I am sporting the Ninja Turtles. Circa 1994, yeah, nice. Shredder right there.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm doing pretty good. A little under the weather. I'm still getting my voice back, so a little rough, but
okay,
we'll make it.
Well, yeah,
I still got a lot to say. It's cool.
yeah, and I know Steve's looking forward to contributing here too. So why don't we get started right away with I know. Talking in the pre-show there, you're fired up about some stuff in the NFL. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll talk about the NBA and the NHL playoffs right now to get that stuff, some actual current sports going on the ice and on the court. So for the NHL now, right now we're in second period. Florida and the Rangers are tied at 1 apiece, and the series is tied 2-2 in the Eastern Conference Finals. So Steve, get your thoughts on it first. What do you think about that series so far, and what are your thoughts about how? I mean, it's basically a best of 3 series now. So
let me put it to you this way, Aaron. We're looking at the tale of two cities with the NBA and the NHL. In the NHL, you've got these back and forth series that are going. I mean, no, in the last round, there were more easy, quick outs. If you look at, the way that the series went, you only had the Vancouver and Edmonton series go 7. And that even both of those teams, if there was a way they could both advance, they should have both advanced. They were phenomenal. But now you look at the NHL, you've got 2 series, 2 games apiece. You've got great hockey going on, which is what the NHL needs. Unfortunately, for the people up in Canada, they've got 1 team left, Toronto, Vancouver going out, you couldn't get both because Edmonton and Vancouver played each other to get to the conference final. But look at the NBA. Boston swept Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
The Mavericks almost swept the Timberwolves. And then they're not going to start the finals till June 6th. You're going to have this downtime in the NBA, not to switch gears quickly here, but you've got a dichotomy, but I think it has to do with the parity in the NHL. I mean, you've got super teams in the NBA. Sure, the Pacers, they put up a great effort, but look at what we've got in the NHL. We've got outstanding goaltenders for all 4 teams. You watch some of the saves that these guys are making day in and day out for all 4 of the last teams standing. It blows my mind, and it goes to show you the effort and the fact that a team such as Dallas has gotten rewarded. They went out into the trade market. They got players. They brought them in. The Rangers. I mean, I see the Rangers a lot being a Penguins fan. I mean, we see them constantly. We don't like the Rangers, but they got Peter Laviolette in there as their coach, which was the right decision. Peter Laviolette, a long time ago, look it up, team called the Wheeling Nailers. They may have been called the Thunderbirds back then down in Wheeling, West Virginia. Laviolette coached them. And he was phenomenal when he coached down there. And people have always said, like, he started his pedigree in the minor leagues and is now at the top of the game. And he is doing well. I mean, Aaron, no matter which way we end up with the 4 remaining teams, whether we get Dallas playing the Rangers, whether we get Dallas playing Florida. I mean, here's the problem. We get Dallas playing Florida. Nobody is going to watch that final. That is going to be a TV ratings disaster.
Yeah.
That's the one option we don't want to see. I mean,
I'd watch that. I have ties to both of those teams.
Hey, Charles, I'm sorry, but if you're looking at it from if you're looking at it from Gary Bettman's standpoint, you want the Rangers to play the Oilers. You're going to get the Canadian market with the Oilers. You're going to get the major TV market with the Rangers. Don't get me wrong. I want to see the Panthers because the Panthers have gotten there recently. But at the same time, Dallas, I think, is the most compelling story of them all, because I really think that the Stars have put on paper, like they've got a great, and that's the thing about that series. Nobody is like breaking neither of these series. I mean, they're back and forth. So great hockey all around. If you don't watch hockey for whatever reason, stop what you're doing. Watch a couple games here coming into the finals. This is some of the best hockey I've seen in years in the playoffs. So that's me on my soapbox. Aaron, if I can mention one thing about hockey before we finish up, I want to give a shout out to Penguins' own Mike Sullivan, who's been named the coach of the 2025 Four Nations face-off team, as well as the 2026 Olympics team. He was supposed to be the coach of the Olympics team back in 2020, but with the pandemic, that got shelved, and unfortunately, 2022, that got shelved. The players didn't go, and so Sullivan's getting his chance now, and I'm proud that he's getting that opportunity.
Nice. Yeah, I've always felt like playoff hockey is some of the best. Yeah, and I'm not a hockey fan. I mean, I grew up watching the sports my dad watched, and hockey was not one of them. And his reasoning back then, I still remember asking him why he doesn't watch it. And he would say things like, well, because back then, I mean, we're talking about in the 80s, and so it was all fights. I mean, it was like there were more fights than, and I know fighting is part of hockey. I get it. I mean, they, throwing down every once in a while. But back then it was like kind of like, hey, I went to see a hockey game and a boxing match broke out, and my dad couldn't stand it. So, but I do enjoy playoff hockey for sure. Brian, how's it going, buddy?
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Brian, this is Brian Snow. Brian has Snowman Multimedia, and it's Snowman in the Morning. Is that what your show is called, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, he was actually going to join us. Was that 2 weeks ago that we were going to talk some NBA?
Yep.
And then, something came
up. I have one statement about the NBA, and it's for the Boston Celtics. Whoever comes out of the West, please stomp a mud hole in them and get out and put us out of our misery, please.
Nice. Yes.
Because
I second that.
Listen, I will tell you why I think I will tell you why I think this way. And I got people in my house that are not even close to being modern basketball fans that agree with me. I'm sick and tired of people ballyhooing about Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and they haven't done a doggone thing. Stop it. Listen, Kyrie Irving. How do I put this? When I was wrapping up my interview and getting ready to come over here for a few minutes, and then I thought,
hey, this promises to be fun.
So I'm going with it. Kyrie Irving hasn't done a doggone thing since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? With 50 seconds left. Since then, Stephen Curry has roasted him. He got roasted in Boston, got roasted in and out of Brooklyn, and now the same thing's going to happen in Dallas. Put it in. Look, Jason Tatum and company, put an end to this, will you please?
Oh, come on. See, now you're killing me here, because I posted the other day about how I actually find myself cheering for Kyrie Irving this year in the playoffs compared to
Kyrie Irving did. You know what Kyrie Irving did to you with a basketball pass? He gave you one of these. And suddenly you like Kyrie Irving for a little while.
I like Kyrie Irving because he shut his mouth about being a flat earther and all the anti-Semitic shit and actually just started to play basketball. Okay. That's why I like Kyrie Irving right now.
He doesn't do it well. Look,
He does it a lot
Jesus.
better than a lot of the guys out there.
That's true.
And you
Wrong
can't
answer.
say, Luke, you can't say that Luka hasn't done anything. Luka's
I hate Luka more than I
quietly
hate
put
Kyrie.
together what will be a Hall
Char-
of Fame career. Look
Charlie,
at his
let me tell you
stats.
this.
Look at what he has done.
Charlie, let me tell you this. I hate
He's
Luka as much
professional.
or more if I hate Kyrie Irving.
Hey, man. Look,
I
I'll
hate.
tell you what,
look,
it took me a
look.
long time to say this as someone who's living in Atlanta, and I do like the Hawks. They made a bad move. I'd much rather have Luka than Trey. When he's healthy, he's a stud. He's a stud. Point blank.
Look, I'd have
He
passed on both.
controls the ball. He controls the game. He scores. He plays defense. He can hit it on both ends of the court. The dude is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. Kyrie,
gonna
his
make-
game has slowed down
I'm
a
gonna
lot.
make
But
every.
Luka,
I'm gonna make every
he's
guy
just
on
getting
this panel.
started.
I'm gonna make every guy on this panel pull their hair out. And the guy can't do that because I don't have any hair. By saying I'd have passed on both of them.
Brian, here's my thing to tell you. I am upset because my team, the Indiana Pacers, decided to take a walk. But unfortunately, as I was talking to Aaron on a Facebook message a couple days ago,
Yeah,
they got the first two games, they got screwed. That series should have been
and that was
2-2.
and that was the end of the series.
And there was something that came from up above from the NBA offices that said this Cinderella story needs to end because we can't have the Pacers anywhere near the finals.
Listen, Adam Silver's in charge.
No.
Adam Silver's in charge. We all know the end of that story. And when the Pacers were getting a lot of momentum from kicking the hell out of the Knicks, Adam Silver said, and put it into it.
Hey, there's one person, Brian, one person that matters to me because I actually, full disclosure, know his dad, know everything, and that is one Timothy John McConnell Jr. From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who next year, look out, people. If Carlisle uses him properly, the Pacers are going further than they did this year. They really impressed a lot of people coming out of the East as a dark horse.
Until Adam Silver engineers another coup like he did this year with Boston and like he did in 2016 with the Cleveland Cadavers.
I'm with you on that, Brian.
Hey, Brian, who's worse?
About what was the highest scoring?
I didn't say Cleveland Cavaliers. I said Cleveland Cadavers.
No, but hey, for real, it's hard to imagine even as good as Boston has been all year. And I think a lot of us pretty much figured that, it was going to be Boston in the end for the East. But you're talking about what was the highest scoring offense in the playoffs. I mean, a team that was up against the Knicks and the refs and the New York fans and fought through
and
that series to pull it off. You telling me they can't get a win against Boston? Something's fishy.
And hung 130 points on their asses in the Garden on a Sunday.
Highest scoring offense in the playoffs. It's nuts.
Yep, their shooting percentage was through the roof. I mean, some of that ball. I mean, that was such an unselfish performance. There were so many just opportunities there. You compare how they looked in those games against the Knicks against how they looked against the Celtics, and something is wrong. And the thing is, I'm flabbergasted. But you know what? Who's worse, Brian? I'll put it to you, and Aaron, I'll put it to you too. Who's worse, Adam Silver or Roger Goodell? They both have their own vendettas.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Aaron, let's put this on the schedule, Fred. We can spend a whole hour just talking that topic. We can talk about that another time.
Roger Goodell. Okay, where do I begin with Roger Goodell? Roger Goodell can go to hell.
Nice.
Okay?
I dig it.
Because he has screwed so many teams over. He has screwed so many players over that it's not even funny. Roger Goodell. Listen, it's a tie for me between Adam Silver and Roger Goodell, and I'll explain why. We all know Look, Roger Goodell let Dan Snyder stay with the Washington Redskins for as long as he did and didn't put a foot in his ass when the name change took place. Hello? You're wiping out tradition here.
Yep.
Adam Silver. I'm trying to find a politically correct way to say this, but I can't find one, so I'm just going to say it plainly. Adam Silver fucked over the NBA in 2016 by handing a stimulus check the size of Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Pennsylvania to the most below mediocre basketball player I've seen ever. And I don't even have to say his name and have bile come out of my mouth. As I often say on my morning show, find the lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that, I've heard people talk about this a lot in terms of like who's the worst commissioner that we have. And I've heard people, include Gary Bettman and who's the one for baseball. I'm trying to think.
Bud Selig. No, it's
No.
Rob Manfred now. Bud
Rob
Selig's
Manfred
done.
now.
Rob
Rob
Manfred
Manfred
is
now.
Who the hell
But-
is
and
Rob
he's
Man-
almost done too. He's
Who the
thinking
hell
about
is
stepping down in a couple
Manfred?
years.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
Listen,
Is it next year? I thought it was like
I got
it was
a
like
great game.
5 years from now or something.
I got a great game we can play. What would you, if you were a commissioner and you name the sport and you'd say the changes you'd make? I'll go first. If I were commissioner of the NBA, I'd tell the Oklahoma City Thunder, shut the hell up and disband them. I would disband the Oklahoma City history. Listen to me carefully. I disband the Oklahoma City history. I tear it up. I put it in the shredder because of the city that preceded them, Seattle, Washington, would get their history back, and those players would go home. I'd kick Russell Westbrook out of the league. I'd kick the hell out of James Harden, tell him, hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Yeah.
I'd tell Kyrie Irving, fuck you and your ticket too. Beat it. And last but not least, finish him. I'd say that to LeBron James. Beat it. I'd bring Bron and Anthony Davis and act like a firing squad. I'd have all of the executives, and if I said a bad word, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We said it before. I've said it before. Don't worry.
Okay. I'd have a firing squad. And what I'd have in their hands are not guns, but their contracts. I'd have each one of them walk over to a shredder and shred it. And then I'd tell all of them, get the hell out and don't you come back. But nothing. You've ruined the NBA and I'm tired of it. Beat it.
Okay, well, and here's okay. So let me ask you this, and Charles and Steve, feel free to chime in here with your opinion on this, because I was going to bring it up a couple weeks ago, and we ended up not even really having time. If I were commissioner of the NBA, one of the things I would start focusing on doing, right now, is promoting. They need to do a better job of promoting their young stars.
Yep.
And I know we had talked about it. Brian, you and I think a couple of the other guys, James and Cole, I think was one of them too, that we were talking about it. The first round of the playoffs came and went. You had no LeBron anymore. You had no Kevin Durant. Steph Curry was out. First time in I think 10 years or something like that none of those players made it past the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea who the hell Anthony Edwards was. I had no idea. I was driving home from work and I heard some people, it was the day that they gave Joker the MVP again.
Yeah.
And one of the guys on the show I was listening to, it was a national show, he wasn't outraged, but he thought it should have gone to SGA. And I'm like, who the fuck is SGA? Who's SGA? I have no idea who that guy is. In fact, I think I said something to you, Charles, that week, and you were surprised I didn't know, maybe, or I don't know, but I have no idea who these guys are, because all the NBA does is hype up their stars who are all close to retiring.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell's going to happen? And I've heard people say, well, they did the same thing with Jordan. They really didn't. I mean, Jordan left. They had Shaq and Penny. They had Houston Rockets and with Hakeem and all those guys. They didn't have the same issue with with Jordan leaving, I mean, yes, obviously there was a void, but
There's
the
still
NBA
a void.
still went on. There is still a void. Yeah, you could say that.
There's still a void.
So what is like? What would be your solutions? And why don't we just go around the horn here? Like Steve, Charles, and then Brian chime in. Like, how do you start promoting, or what do you do to start getting these guys out in the open here? There's like at least 10 guys that are 25 and under that are outstanding players, that are exciting players that could really get you, including Luca, who I think is only like 25. And Brian, I know you don't like him, but Steve, so what do you think, Steve, with the NBA and promoting?
I'm going to talk about it from a different angle. I'm going to talk about it from the college flowing into the pros. We're having all these different things. We had the one and dones forever and ever and ever. Then before that you could just like be a Kobe Bryant and go right from high school into the pros. I mean, now with the NIL, it's a completely different ball game. There's not as much of an incentive for the young players to leave the college game as quickly as they did before. So, there also needs to be, I'll be honest, the reason why I stopped, watching the NBA as much as I did is because it's become a showboat fest. It is not, to me, as pure of a game as it was. Like, go back and watch footage of Larry Bird play, even Michael Jordan. Sure, Michael Slam Jam, that's great. But watch the difference. John Stockton, that generation, the purity of the game. Now, that's what I think has attracted me to the Pacers. The Pacers are playing a style that is more reminiscent of older. I want to say older. I mean, the 90s and early 2000s. Older, but I mean, geez, it's hard to think of it that way, but that's where we are. But to follow up on another thing too, really quick, a little bit separate, but the NBA are doing these play-in games for the playoffs to try to ensure that the big teams still survive, even if they don't make it on the top line of the cut. Look at the NHL. You've got how many teams make it, and that's it. You don't make it, you're out. Like the Penguins, they just didn't make it. But now the NBA, hey, we're gonna have this team play this team, then this team's gonna play this team, and it's gonna take like 5 days to decide who actually makes the official playoffs. And it's like, okay, I understand you're trying to ensure that your star teams survive, and not all of them did this year. But I think I will say this. I do appreciate what they are doing with replay and being very open. I wish more sports would follow suit with that, where you're having that communication with the fans. Like, I know them, sure, everybody turns their mics on, but I feel like the NBA is just trying to take it to the next level of communicating. But at the same time, as we're all saying, these are all rigged. I mean, they're getting verdicts from a replay room somewhere in the country, and that's the end of the story. So,
and now it's filtering into college basketball. Oops.
Yeah. Charles, how about you? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, so Steve kind of took some of mine, but like seriously, for basketball to fix basketball, I feel like you do need to bring back that more 90s style of play where it was entertaining. They gotta let them play more. That's the thing. Like, if I'm telling my refs, I'm like, look, you see somebody flop, just keep walking by. Don't even say nothing. We're going to cut this shit out. This has got to stop.
Yeah.
All right. We got a bunch of babies on the court. We used to play like a bunch of men. We got to stop this. We're whining about it. Just walk away. I don't want to see technicals. I don't want to see none of it. I want it to be completely ignored, and I want you to let them play and force them to play. That's really what I would do. I would address that. It's an issue. And in particular, it's been an issue with one superstar that I think has made it more prevalent, that it's going on, and that needs to stop. LeBron play like a grown man. Seriously, dude.
LeBron's a pussy.
Whines, man. If I was at him, I would call him up. At this point, the NBA has made enough money off of LeBron James. They do not need him anymore. There are better players on the court than what he is today. Like, seriously. And honestly, we don't need him for his kid to come play in the NBA. If the kid wants to be a star, he's going to have to play in the NBA. So I would pick up the phone and be like, LeBron, you got to stop the whining crap. Seriously, dude. You're not setting a good example for the kids. Knock it off.
Charles,
that's what I would do. And that would be a big help because he's a huge influence. But let him play. Get back to that old style.
But he wouldn't
get Shaq back.
But don't forget, he came to that game in Cleveland a couple weeks ago, and it freaking started a firestorm of people going, is he coming back to the Cavs? What is going on? Why is LeBron suddenly deciding to show up for a playoff game in Cleveland? Come on.
No, he's got to stay in LA. You got another coach fired. He's got to stay there.
And the reason we give 2/5 of a half of a damn.
That's
and that's part of the problem is that, even ESPN the other day, was it yesterday?
Oh God, not those guys.
Yeah, they came out exactly. Well, they came out and it was like, oh, and we have the decision by Bronny, and I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, the kid hasn't even played in the NBA, and now we're making the decision whether he's going to stay in college or stay in the draft and everything. I'm like, and they didn't make a big show of it, but they made it sound like it was, the decision part 2. And I'm like, oh Christ, the decision part 1 sucked. We have to do this all of a sudden now with Bronny, who is, maybe 1/10 of what his dad was. I'm not taking anything away from LeBron as far as his ability is concerned. He's one of the best, certainly top 5, maybe top 10,
in his prime, maybe one of the best
in his prime.
No,
just a freak. You don't agree with that, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Hell no, I don't agree with that.
Incredible skill set.
Yeah, from what?
Ball.
From what? From what? LeBron is the most below mediocre player I've seen play in the NBA, and I've watched the NBA since 1980.
If he played in the 90s, yeah, but that's not the
He's
generation
the most below mediocre player right now. He's been that way for 21 years. Stop it.
No,
he's a bull in a china shop that doesn't know how to take 2 simple steps before he goes to the hoop. Okay, 2 steps. Now, let me say this, and then I gotta go play daddy and take my daughter to work. Let me say this: I wouldn't have let LeBron in the league in 2003.
So you would have made him go to college? Is that what you're saying?
I would have made his ass play under Mike Krzyzewski or Dean E. Smith. Or Roy Williams. I'd have told, look, the application comes in, right? And I'm going to do this the way I do it on my morning show. The application comes in. I read it. I tear it up. He puts another one in. I read it and I tear it up again. Finally, if his people come, you need to let LeBron in the league. You, and you. Get the out of my office.
So you're not a fan now, and I let me just say this before you go.
No, I'm not a fan of LeBron.
No, but you're not a fan of are you a fan of the one and done?
Yeah, that answer your question?
Yeah.
Look, well, I'm old. I can't help it.
No, I agree. I don't think. I'm not a fan of players skipping college either. And I miss the days of, knowing. You knew, even though I hated this team, you knew that Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley were representing Duke for 4 years, or at least 3.
And
I hated their
Larry
guts.
Johnson and Stacey, and you knew Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon would represent Nevada, Las Vegas. You knew Michael Jordan and James Worthy would represent North Carolina.
Exactly.
You knew Patrick Ewing and David Wingate would represent Georgetown. You knew Chris Mullin and Mark Jackson would represent St. John's. You knew Dwayne the Pearl Washington would represent Syracuse. You knew Nick Anderson would represent Illinois. Y'all get the idea.
Yep. And one of the things I will say is this. One of the only things I like still about ESPN is their 30 for 30s. And one of the best 30 for 30s is Requiem for the Big East. If you want to see a fantastic, kind of stroll down memory lane, that is one of my favorites.
Let's put it simply.
And that was great basketball back then.
And many people said it. Basketball built the Big East. Football killed it.
Yes, it did.
Football killed football absolutely destroyed the Big East Conference.
Yes, it did.
But they did, but I will give them credit. They did a good job for a long time keeping it together before Syracuse, especially. I think that was kind of the first big
Defection.
domino to fall there.
The first big domino fall was Syracuse.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And
So
But I miss the old Big East, Syracuse,
Oh,
UConn,
I agree.
St. John's,
I
Pitt,
agree.
Georgetown,
Pitt. Do not forget Pitt,
Georgetown,
Brian.
Pitt. Who?
Pittsburgh. Send
Who
it
the hell
in,
is that?
Jerome.
I remember. And Mike Gorman was on the call for that, and I watched it live. And I saw it. My dad saw it. Yes, I remember Pittsburgh, the old Civic Arena, the old Igloo, and
The old
I
Fitzgerald
forgot the name of that
Fieldhouse.
place where they Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. Thank you. That's the name I was looking for.
Brian, I'm in Pittsburgh, so you're going to get a lot of Pittsburgh talk when I'm on.
And you're going to get a lot of 49er talk when it comes to football with me.
Oh, that's why we're not gonna. Well, that's why
Which-
Brian's not gonna be on a lot during football season. No, I'm just kidding.
You wanna
Brian, I will say this really quick about the Big East is that it is a different. That Pittsburgh had to bolt when the going got tough and they went to the ACC. It is
Right.
not the way things used to be.
Not
Like
even
we still
close.
get Syracuse and we still hate Syracuse. Trust me, when
Yeah.
Boeheim, until he retired, would show up. Like I were a couple games a year that I would go with my dad down to the Peterson Event Center to see Pitt play. Syracuse was always on my list. And trust me, I would boo as soon as Boeheim set foot on the court. I would join the
Is it
chorus to
not the
boos.
same? Is Peterson Fieldhouse not the same as Fitzgerald
It's not.
Fieldhouse?
Fitzgerald is
It's
about a
not the
5,000
same,
seat. It's
isn't it?
still open. They use it for volleyball and gymnastics and some of the smaller sports. The Peterson
Mhm.
Event Center is the bigger arena that they
Yeah.
tore down Pitt Stadium and they built that in its place. In the heyday, in the Big East days, they
blow up
sold that place out. Game
Every
after
night.
game.
Every night, every game, Fitz was sold out,
5,000 seats. This place
and it made it
beats
feel
holds
like 50, and it made it feel like 50,000 when if you go in there and listen to the noise, especially
if you have a sold out crowd at the Pete, it's ear deafening. But the problem is the ACC. Sure, bring Duke in, bring Carolina in. People show up, but for the most part, we're not getting full
Yeah.
houses. You know,
Right.
not to go down this road, but you know, I talk about the Big East. I from someone who is in a market that was a Big East that had to go somewhere else. I mean, lost the backyard brawl, and it pains me. We get it. We're gonna lose it, then we get it back. Trust me. Pitt and West Virginia still hate each other as much as they did back then.
I know.
Period.
I used to live in Pittsburgh.
I will be there when West Virginia shows up this year to tell them how wonderful it is to have them come north of the border.
Yeah.
Period.
I used to live in Pittsburgh for a bit, so I know the rivalry of the backyard brawl. I had the experience of seeing a backyard brawl live before they blew the piss out of Pitt Stadium.
Yep.
Man, the one time, that's the only game I ever went to, and it just happened to be a backyard brawl at Pitt Stadium.
Yep.
I didn't have my ears after I walked out of that joint. I didn't have my ears. And on that note, I better split because there's a pretty lady waiting for me to take her to work. So let me get going. Aaron, guys, thank you for having me. I promise next time it'll be a full appearance. But I got to play daddy right now. No, I don't play that. I got to be daddy right now and make sure my daughter gets to and from. So thank you, guys.
Sounds good, Brian. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. Okay, so let's real quick get back to our hockey. And let Charles give his 2 cents here on what we're looking at for the both the Eastern Conference and Western Conference. And by the way, just an update: Dallas is beating Minnesota by 30 right now with 6 minutes left in the third quarter. So it looks like
30 now.
Looks like Dallas is going to be, unless there's a monumental comeback by Minnesota here, which there always could be, but I'm not holding my breath. I was kind of cheering for Minnesota, but we'll talk about that in a second. Charles, what are your thoughts on? And right now it looks like there's let's see, end of the second period, second intermission.
4 minutes left.
Yeah, 1-1. Still Panthers and Rangers here in Game 5. So, what are your thoughts on the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference finals so far in the NHL?
So, all right. So I haven't really gotten to watch the Western Conference. that much. I've only seen some highlights, but it seems like a good series. But I think that Dallas is going to come out on top. I just think that they're a better team, and that they're playing better. They came in to this series, I think, a little hotter, and I think that's going to carry them through. But man, this East playoff is now that's been incredible. But this has been a battle. Well, Lafreniere has really stepped up for the Rangers, and Trocheck too. Like, man, he's on fire. It's weird because with the Rangers, almost period to period, it's like two different teams at times, and whoever was calling play-by-play said, I feel like said it best the other night. At times they just look stymied. They really have. But then at other times they've been on fire. And both of these goalies have just been insane this whole run, and so it's been, it's like this first period in this game, it's defense, and just these guys are just playing lights out in both of the nets. It's made for a really awesome series so far. I'm pulling for the Rangers. I think the Rangers are the better team. I actually kind of like both teams, really. I'm sort of the hockey nomad. I don't have an allegiance at this point right now. So, but I got a whole bunch of friends from New York, so I'm pulling for the Rangers, and I do think that they're going to come out on top in this one.
I was going to say, didn't you pick the Rangers to represent the East in the NHL final?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought
we got the receipt. It's recorded somewhere.
I know. It's got it. So that was a few weeks ago. I have to look it up. Now, and both of you can remind me of this. Did I hear the other day? Right now, Edmonton, if they would win and get to the final and win that, they'd be the first Canadian team to win it in like 35 years, wouldn't they?
It's something like that.
It's a long time,
isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was.
It's like at least 20 years, right?
I think there's been a Canadian team in the mid 20. I'm trying to remember. There's a Canadian team, I think, mixed in there. I'm sorry, I'm Wikipediaing in the background, Aaron, while you're talking. So let me see if I can dig it up here really quick and find out the latest Canadian team to
Shannon's telling me that's correct. So,
the Canadians.
Yeah, it's been that long. That's right. Because every time
31 years. Yeah.
Every time because Edmonton got there in 06 and lost. The Canucks got there in 11 and lost.
Yeah, there's been a couple that have gone
21 and lost.
So yeah, I mean, really, when you think about it, it would be the best case scenario for the NHL is Edmonton versus the Rangers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
From a financial standpoint.
Yeah, from a ratings standpoint.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I think the better matchup would be Dallas and the Rangers, though.
Dallas and
I think you would get a better product.
See, I would say the matchup that the league wants is Edmonton Rangers. I think that the matchup that would be just pure hockey would honestly be Dallas, Florida. That could be just a series of unpredictables, not in a bad way, but it would be just a very unique situation because they are not really, think about it. Think about the fact that if Dallas wins, as Aaron, we talked about a couple weeks ago when I was chatting in, if the Mavs win and the Stars win, they are both going to be playing the finals for their respective sports in the same building at the same time.
Yeah.
Does not happen very often.
Well, we talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago when the Knicks were still alive in the playoffs and how they were going to do that between the Rangers and the Knicks too, I think. Okay, well, let's move on to now. I know we just talked NBA for a while, but we didn't really talk about the playoffs. So let's talk about that real quick, and then Charles, I'm going to let you loose on your thoughts on the NFL here and what just happened, because you were on fire, and I love that. So let's actually let everybody else see it. So for the NBA finals, or it looks like it's going to be Dallas and Boston. I absolutely despise Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's funny is, as a sports fan, I love watching old stuff with the Boston Celtics because of Bird and McHale and the now late Bill Walton in '86 and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate the greatness of those teams from the past, and even going back further with Bill Russell and all that. But I just hate this team, and I hate. I think there's a certain arrogance from some. Now, of course, people are going to laugh because as a Packers fan, people say the exact same thing about us. But there's a certain kind of arrogance to some Boston Celtics fans that just grinds my gears. It reminds me of St. Louis Cardinal fans. It's just like there's an entitlement that we should just just hand over the championship to us, and the Larry O'Brien trophy should be just come right back to Boston.
Dallas Cowboys fans, Aaron.
Yeah, but I feel like Dallas Cowboy fans have gotten to the point where it's almost just comical. Like they say this is their year, and you're just like, okay, buddy, you keep thinking. But yeah, well, let's start with you, Steve. What are your thoughts on that matchup? If we can assume, and now it's 89-61 Dallas with 4:37 left in the third quarter. Dallas, does Dallas have what kind of shot do they have of beating the Celtics? I will say this before you start. The Celtics haven't impressed me at all this playoffs, and maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like this is one of the easiest trips to through the conference finals that I've seen in a long time. So what are your thoughts?
Let's start with what didn't happen, and then look what didn't happen was the Pacers knocked off the Knicks. I think the Celtics would have had a much more difficult time getting to the NBA final if the Knicks had been there. I mean, the Pacers put up a heck of a show, but as we all know, there was definitely the NBA bias as we've talked about, it was alive and well, I believe, during that series.
There's that. There's also injuries. I mean, you can't get past the injuries from Tyrese Halliburton and all
absolutely.
That. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and there were injuries all around. I mean, that's part of the playoffs, But I think you're exactly right. The Celtics got an easy ride. They basically almost got a gimme series against the Pacers as a 6th seed. The Mavs have proven themselves, and this is where I think this is going to be the best of the East versus the best of the West. This is going to be what we all want to see. I know there's haters on both sides of this. There's people that just, even though Cuban has sold his majority share in the team, he is still the face of the Mavericks for the public. And I think if they get to the finals, I mean, that place down in Dallas is going to be on fire. I mean, that their fans are just going to be beside themselves. And I think that's where the Celtics are going to get a wake-up call, because I don't think the Eastern Conference playoffs were nearly as difficult as what the Mavs have been dealing with in the West. But at the same time, I think both sides have shown that they are who they are. I mean, and as we've said, sure, there's people we hate. We don't like Luka. I mean, I'm okay with Luka, but we've got players like that on both sides of this, and so I'm rooting for the Mavs. I want to see the Mavs, but here's the thing. I want it to go 7. I think that this series the ratings would be off the charts by games 6 and 7 if this just goes back and forth like I think it will. There's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be a lot of just excitement. But I think the one interesting thing is we've got a long layoff because the playoffs or the finals don't start until June 6th. So now these teams are going to clear their hurdles in their conferences, and now they've got a week basically of rest. And what's it going to do? Is it going to help them? Is it going to hurt them? What are we going to see? But I am excited.
Charles, what about you?
I like the matchup. I'm with you. Boston's just so easy to hate. I hate Boston. I hate the Celtics. I hate the Patriots. I hate the Bruins. I freaking can't stand the Red Sox. Adam, I still love you, brother, but Boston sucks. Seriously? And so I don't want them to be there. It's not enjoyable to see them be there. So of course I'm going to root for Dallas, but I think that Steve, you're right. They had a cakewalk into basically throughout the whole playoffs, and they're going to be on a lot of rest, a little bit more than Dallas, not a lot, but a little bit more that could be an advantage. It could be a disadvantage. I hope that it's a disadvantage. I tend to think that too much rest between series in playoffs can be a disadvantage. I'm just one of those about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, we get to see, what Luka can do against, the Celtics, which are a pretty complete team. So I'm excited about that. And I feel like, of course, the NBA, Steve, definitely would love for that matchup to go 7 games, but I just don't know if it will. I really see it more of like kind of a 6-game, 5 or 6 game. I just for some reason don't, because I think whatever team, with the rest and all, I suspect will be a little bit deflated. So it wouldn't surprise me if Dallas clicks off 2 wins real quick and then they get into some actual good play. So we'll see what happens. It'll be all right, though. It's 2 solid teams for sure. Best in the East was possible, one of the best in the West. So we'll see what happens.
One thing really
Okay.
quick before we move
Yeah.
on here, and I think it's really interesting. The finals will start on Thursday, June 6th. Then game 2 will be on Sunday, June 9th. Game 3 will not be until Wednesday, June 12th. There is going to be a almost week between game 1 and game 3.
Yeah.
This is a very intriguing schedule as to how they made it. I mean, I'm sure it's all made for TV, but the fact that there are that big of gaps in there, it's going to be very interesting to see how the teams both play and strategize their lineups.
Yeah. Yeah. I never, that's the one thing that frustrates me with basketball is, and I feel like basketball is the worst. I feel like baseball does the best at it, actually, with in terms of the sports that have multiple game series. I mean, I love the way football does it. Just hey, one and done, whatever. But yeah, for the series, basketball's been like that for years, where you have these huge layoffs, and you're like, I don't even remember who the hell is playing right now. Oh yeah, there they are. Because it just that it's. And I get you have to do it. I mean, the logistics are part of it with tickets and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I hate that there's that big layoff that they have. So, all right, let's move on. And now I will say this: last week, I was I had some things come up, and so then we weren't able to do the show. And I was going to bring up. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was going to bring up the whole Harrison Butker controversy, whatever you want to call it. And then of course, it's kind of died down a bit in the last week or so. But now, Charles, you wanted to talk because well, let's be honest, Kansas City has been having a hell of an off season. When it comes to certain issues, a lot of which are criminal issues, and why don't you go ahead and talk about something that just happened today, and I hadn't actually heard about it until you said it. So and here I don't know. Let's see if Shanna, sorry, not Shannon. Damn it, Crawley. Oh no, sorry. Okay. So, Charles, go ahead. You take the floor.
Right. So,
tell everybody what happened.
So, the next chapter in the carnival ride that is the Kansas City offseason is Isaiah Buggs, who he's got a club. This is our hookah bar, right? And all of this spawns from everything. He had 2 warrants put out yesterday for animal cruelty. He turned himself in today. Apparently, what had happened was it was a house that I guess is in his name, or he was renting, that he had moved out of at the end of March, I believe it was. And then in April, there was these 2 dogs that were still there, a Rottweiler that was in a cage and a pit bull, both of them, I guess, on the back porch, which is like a screened in or a closed off porch. Rather than no access to food or water. And now his attorneys and his statement and all says that they weren't his dogs and that he didn't know that the dogs were still there. But from everything that he's being accused of, these two dogs were malnourished. They weren't taken care of. The pit bull, when they were taken in by animal control, the pit bull got like so aggressive and with other health issues and stuff that it actually had to be put down. The Rottweiler apparently has parvo, which can be like deadly to dogs. Like that's one of the, things that we like try to prevent our dogs from getting is parvo and stuff. They have a simple shot for that. Go get it. So with all that happening, it also comes out that he had pushed the sheriff supposedly and at his hookah lounge, which is an occupancy of 83 people. Well, the police had come out to it because they found 283 people were there. There was a big to-do about the whole thing. Apparently, he had told the officers that they're not arresting him. He's not going to be going with them. And he tries to, like, I guess, take off out the back or something. And from what the story is saying is that the sheriff, I guess, tried to talk him out of it, put his hand on his shoulder, and then he shoved the sheriff. And then they're saying that it took like 6 officers to get the guy in handcuffs and all. And that was from that incident. And then the incident with having all the people and a whole bunch of complaints and stuff. And it's like, it's a whole crazy twisted story. They're claiming that, and they're not saying that what their evidence and stuff is. They're saying that they're going to leave that for court, but they're claiming that the city of Tuscaloosa is trying to get him to give up his business license. They don't like the hookah lounge there and what's going on there and stuff. So they got all of this happening. Now, this is still pretty fresh, and I haven't seen, a whole lot of reactions. Like Aaron, like you said, you hadn't even heard about it yet until we were talking about it on the show. But this, on top of, you've got the whole graduation thing where you've got Harrison Butker, who came out a good, faithful Catholic man who's got his values and what he stands for. And he went to a college that has those same values and stands for those same damn things. And he talked about it, and he talked to the kids who chose to go to that college that supports those values. And there's a whole bunch of uproar about it. It's ridiculous. And then you've got Travis Kelce, who goes to a graduation, gets up on stage, chugs a beer while he's rocking out to us like damn Beastie Boys or something, because that's the example that we want to set for our young adults. That's going to lead them in the right path. And everybody's cheering him. Nobody's saying anything about the dude that one dog's already dead, the other one might not. Oh, not to mention your star wide receiver got busted with some weed, hurt some people, dropped the car on the highway and ran away from it. Nobody really seems to care about that other than the fantasy players. And all we want to know is how long is his suspension going to be? It's crazy. Harrison Butker's taking the most heat out of all of these things. There's a petition for him to lose his job. People signing this petition. People can have their own values. Sports players, athletes, actresses, politicians, people in the limelight, they can have their own values. They can have their own opinions. You don't have to have the same opinion, but don't be calling for the man's job. He didn't do anything wrong. Get your heads out of your little starfish. You understand what I'm saying? Like, seriously, it drives me nuts, guys. It really does. And now you got animal cruelty. And this is my thing. Every single person who has had a problem, there better be a petition to get him kicked off. I don't care. The man pays his dues, whatever, whatever. But if you're going to have a petition for that and you people are going to make this big fuss, I better see that times 5 for animal cruelty. And if not, it's all ridiculous. It doesn't matter. It's just hating. It just irritates me. But, man, the Kansas City offseason is a mess. And I've said this before. This team is going to be an HBO special at some point in time. We're going to watch it. It's going to be good. Might even be a 30 for 30.
It's not going to be this year's Hard Knocks, though, Charles, because they announced today it's the Bears.
I wish it would be.
Yeah, that would be entertaining if it was the Kansas City Chiefs. But what do you think about that, Steve?
I'm thinking about other things that the Shield is either trying to protect or not to protect. Give you an example. I was inadvertently in Las Vegas Super Bowl week, not for the Super Bowl, but for other things. And it is the most interesting confluence of two things together in one time, because you got the sports books that are the heck out of like, oh my goodness, the Super Bowl's here, bet on the Super Bowl, bet. And then at the same time, they're putting out all these edicts to the players, the officials, the executives of the teams, like, you can't be on the gambling floors or placing bets at these times or this or that. And it's like, so you're one hand, you're like, holy cow, gambling is doing so much for our game. On the other side of the coin, you're like, we really have got to, and then the fact that you talk about like players in trouble. I mean, these guys that are gambling on sometimes themselves at their team facilities that are then getting suspensions for years or even banned. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're kind of, I don't want to say a moral crisis here, where we're kind of looking at things where someone is speaking their mind on their own time versus someone who is, I mean, don't get me wrong. What is going on in this dogfighting, or not dogfighting, but this, animal cruelty thing with Isaiah Buggs is just, it's beyond, it's crazy. But when we're there and we've got players that have grown up with, Pete Rose getting banned for life from baseball because he bet on his own team, and they're there at their facilities on their phones with their sports betting apps, betting on themselves as part of parlays. I mean, where are we with, integrity? And that's what I'll come back to that and say, if you look at all the things that are going on right now, the person that's got the most integrity is Harrison Butker, because Harrison Butker went to a place where he had the same values. He went to a place and actually espoused those values. He wasn't wearing a Chiefs uniform. He wasn't there on Chiefs time. He was there as Harrison Butker to wish those kids. And trust me, I heard a lot. I listened to most of the speech later on. He stood up for his values. Good for him.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to,
and that's just it. Like, people forget, like, he, again, like you said, first of all, it's the off season for football. He wasn't wearing, his Chiefs jersey. He wasn't speaking as a representative of the Chiefs. He was speaking, at a Catholic school where a lot of these people probably share almost exactly the same values that he has. He didn't do it at UW-Madison or, Ohio State University or any of that stuff. It's like, you can disagree with it all you want, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I have no problem with people disagreeing with it, but this idea that, if somebody disagrees with you, that you have to demand that they lose their job is just is absolutely freaking ridiculous. And actually, I wish Brandon was here on the show today, because he and I got into it with, and it was more me than him, by the way, but he had posted something, and this was a couple weeks ago, or maybe the beginning of last week, I can't remember, but he had posted something which actually had nothing to do with politics, but it had to do with Butker. And I can't remember what, I wish I remember what the meme was, but it wasn't really supporting Harrison Butker, but it wasn't like saying he should be fired or banned from, the NFL or any of that crap. And this guy that he knows came on and basically just turned it into a whole Trump versus Biden thing. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It has nothing to do with Trump and Biden. It's just people, this country has lost their minds with the ability to actually have intelligent discussion and conversation. And I mean, I blame social media, which I know, I understand the irony as we're doing this show on social media, our social media platforms, but there's a complete disconnect when it comes and it was just, I wish and I don't want to get banned on Facebook for bullying, so I'm not going to like call the guy out or anything, but if I could share the exchange between us, it was so funny, because it went from hey, I support, I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but I support his ability to say it and not lose his job, to all of a sudden this guy, claiming that I'm a huge Trump supporter. And I'm like, I didn't even talk about Donald Trump. Like, what are you talking about? It was just, it's comical to see some of that stuff. But, I totally, here, I'm sharing some, Harrison did nothing wrong here. Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's well, we're almost done here. So let's I wanted to bring this up. First of all, do you guys have any thoughts on I mentioned before the Boston Celtics of the 80s and Bill Walton. He passed away, what was it, Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I was shocked. I was shocked when I saw it. I actually didn't, maybe you guys heard, but I had no clue that he even had cancer.
He was very private about that.
Very
fact.
private about it. He must have been, because I remember seeing him, talking about the NBA playoffs, and he didn't even look like he had cancer. That was the crazy part about it. So, and since we've been starting with you, Charles, I'll start with you this time. Any thoughts on the passing of Bill Walton?
I mean, we come and we go. He was getting old. He had a full life, but it's sad because the dude's a legend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was awesome. So here's the thing: he was incredible at his sport, but he was also one of those dudes that was like, he was a really incredible person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know what I like him for more, playing the game or playing in like movies and TV and stuff like that and all, just the little bit parts and things that he's had and stuff that have been really funny, and his personality, his interviews. I love some of his interviews, man. They were great. So it's sad. It's always sad, to lose a legend. But it's kind of cool because everybody, and this is one thing that's cool about social media, is, when somebody like that does pass, everybody starts, posting and bringing up like some of the old cool like clips and stuff like that. And you just kind of get to sit there, throughout the day if you scroll and stuff and kind of remember some of those, interviews and things and, some of those highlights and stuff that you saw like as a kid or something. Be like, oh yeah, man, that's awesome. Brings back memories. So it's sad, but man, God, he was a cool dude. Yeah, he was such a great personality, and damn, he could play ball.
For sure. Steve, how about you?
Let's see how quickly I can go through my reminiscing. So first thing is listening to Mike Greenberg here a couple of days ago. He talked about how when him and Golick were still together, Walton got on with the producer and was like, just tell Greeny to set me up and then they can go get a cup of coffee. Greeny said he literally talked for 12 minutes straight and did not need Greeny and Golick to interject one bit. He was able to keep the conversation going himself. So many times. I mean, they were talking, his last broadcast with Dave Pasch on ESPN was on February 1st. Those nights, like here on the East Coast, when you just couldn't go to sleep and you flip on during college basketball season, and there'd be, most of the time, it would be Dave Pasch and Bill Walton, and you just didn't know what you were going to get because there was a basketball game going on. But Bill Walton had lots of other things that he had on his mind that he'd like to share with you, which was perfectly fine because it was Bill Walton. So that's great. I also did not know Bill Walton was into cycling as much as he was. He was very much an avid bicycle cycler. He
Sure.
was a fan of the sport, a fan of making sure that cyclists had a great environment to be able to bicycle in. I know there was somewhere in California that he was helping get some projects going, and of course the consummate Deadhead. He loved the Grateful Dead. I mean, he was a big Deadhead, but he just had the way he would wax poetic, and half the time it wasn't about the subject that he was. I will miss hearing his commentary because honestly there's other people like him, but there will never be another Bill Walton, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great job saying that. I just, in fact, what was ironic is over the weekend I had just gotten done watching the 3-part 30 for 30. I don't mean to keep talking about 30 for 30, but I was watching the 3-part series, the Lakers versus Celtics, and I think it was called Best of Enemies or something like that. Anyway, they obviously talked to Bill Walton, and talked about that 86 team.
Mhm.
And I will say this: Kevin McHale does a fantastic Bill Walton impression. If you ever get a chance to watch that series, I believe it's part 3 of the series that they specifically have Walton on a lot. But it was it makes you laugh, even if you're not a Celtics fan. You got to kind of laugh at the impression. But I heard something. I believe it was yesterday on the radio. They were talking about his passing, and again, if I have it correct, he didn't lose a game. If you went back to, I think, his junior year of high school all the way through like his sophomore year of college,
Wow.
he did not lose a single game that whole time. I mean, that's crazy to me. And I wish I had, I mean, I was born in 76. So when he won with Portland, he won the NBA title. I was 1 year old, so I didn't really, I see everything in, on video, or I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But, by the time I actually knew who Bill Walton was, I mean, he was already retired. And so you don't really understand until you actually like sit down and take an opportunity to like go over some of his information. But yeah, it's just such a unique guy. I mean, just a kind of a, yeah, I guess I don't. I mean, I guess Steve, you kind of said it best. I mean, he just very unique, not only in his ability as a player, but just all the different interests he had. And I saw that he had played guitar in a number of concerts with different bands, including the Grateful Dead and all that. So, just a unique individual that I wish more people, had a chance to kind of get to know even better. But all right, this is what I wanted to end on here. I want to get your opinions, and then I'm gonna put it out on the tomorrow on the in our group and get other people's opinions here. Here in Wisconsin, the big sports news of the week has been the return of Craig Counsell as Cubs manager for the first time in Milwaukee. Okay, and now Charlie, Charles, I know you're a big baseball fan, so I know pretty much all the background. Steve, I don't know if you are as familiar with the background of what happened, but I mean, his contract was coming to an end, or was done actually, and he decided to go kind of test the market to see what he could get as a manager. And everyone kind of thought he was going to come back to Milwaukee because he's a Wisconsin boy. He grew up a Brewers fan, played for the Brewers. I think even worked in the Brewers front office before he became manager, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you're not going to, if you go to a team, maybe he goes to the Mets. He didn't go to the Mets. All of a sudden he signs with the freaking Cubs. To me, the only team worse would have been the Cardinals. At least that's for me. And so a lot of fans in Wisconsin were pissed. There was a lot of booing on Monday. I was kind of upset. I said to my wife, I wish we lived a little closer to Milwaukee. We're about a 2-hour drive from Milwaukee. I said, I wish we lived like an hour away because I would have gotten tickets for that game, to go on Monday since it was Memorial Day anyway. My question is, think back to all the teams you're a fan of, and I know Charles, again, you said a few times you're kind of a nomad when it comes to a lot of different, or a few different sports, especially hockey. But what was the one thing that you can think of in all of sports that really pissed you off? And Steve, I'll start with you because the way you're laughing, maybe something already came to mind.
There is two things that just top of the list for me. Number one is Sid Bream destroying the hearts of Pittsburgh Pirates fans in the National League Championship Series. And that was, and you, Mr. Atlanta down there. My wife is actually from Atlanta too, so she's not as big of a sports fan, but I'm like, yeah, I married a woman from the city that broke Pittsburgh's heart when I was younger, because that was our ticket to the World Series. And to this day, I have still not seen a World Series because the Pirates after that point just went into a continual spiral. And the other one has to be Pirates, had dropped off, unfortunately, in 91 and 92. The Penguins had won the 91-92 Cups. Both teams were supposed to do it in 93. And the Islanders broke the Penguins' hearts of their three-peat for a Stanley Cup, which we think they would have won 3 in a row. Those are my, I mean, there's a lot more, don't get me wrong, but if you look back in my, I mean, as I said earlier, give me an hour and I could probably fill it for you, Aaron, but those are the two that if you're looking back on, and I know they're not recent, but Sid Bream, top of the list for me.
Okay, Charles, how about you?
All right, so I've got two.
Okay.
And they're pretty close. One is just with in particular player. Andrew Luck wronged my Colts in a serious way. I get it.
Yeah.
You want to retire,
Yeah.
but that's not the time that you retire if you're the franchise quarterback. Like, that was ridiculous. That broke my heart, and it made me mad. That will always tell you what. And the other one, by the way, I love the Sid Bream slide. Oh man, that is like part of the reason that I am a Braves fan. I moved to Atlanta in 1990. So like, that is a huge reason that there's a Braves tattoo on my leg. That's one of the greatest plays ever. And sang songs about that play on the radio down here. It was awesome. I'm not even kidding. Multiple ones.
I know.
But
I know. When I visit, trust me, I know the lore.
The out that wasn't an out because of the infield pop fly rule would put the Braves out of the playoffs. That was ridiculous. Wasn't even an infield pop fly. That one, I will forever be mad about that. But in some ways, Major League Baseball did kind of make up for it a little bit this week when they forced the world's worst umpire to retire. So,
No.
make amends.
No. The world's worst umpire, and I'm bringing another Atlanta
His name's
back up.
Hernandez.
His name was Jerry Meals, who called that horrible call against the Pirates in their longest game in team history to that point back in 2011 when they played the Braves.
Man.
And Meals destroyed that call. And the Major League Baseball people said, yep, Meals missed that call.
Do you remember the little kid? Did you watch that game?
Yes, I watched that whole
Funny story.
game.
I had a kidney stone that night, and I just laid on the couch and watched that whole game. Do you remember the kid that at like 1:00 in the morning is still yelling?
Yep. And
it became like a focal point of the conversation for the latter part of this game by the play-by-play guys, at least on the Braves side.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll always remember that was an incredible game. That was an awesome baseball game.
But what I will tell you both is that the funny thing is that Jerry Meals was born about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh.
I saw a thing though. Angel statistically has got like more like games with the most bad calls than like any like statistically he is like the worst umpire ever.
So wait, did they just forced him to retire?
Yeah.
No, the whole settlement thing is finally finished. And as part of the settlement, he had to retire immediately.
Nice.
Effective immediately. So yeah, they basically found a way to get him out without, kicking him out. They did us all a favor.
That's awesome. By the way, Florida is up now 3-1 with
it was just 2-1 a second ago.
Yep, minute 15 seconds left to go in the third. So it looks like Florida's going to take a 3-2 lead. Yeah, and I'll say this, mine, and I'm sure for those that know that I'm a Packer fan from Wisconsin, is Brett Favre signing with the Minnesota Vikings. That is by far, I'm not a big booer when it comes to sports. I mean, I don't have a problem with people that do it. But usually my thing is, I'm just going to stand there and not clap, not make a sound. That's kind of my deal. And when he signed with the Queens and showed up at the end of October that first year with the Vikings, my brother, who never shows emotion at games, he's very stoic, kind of like my dad always was when we would go to Packer games. He booed louder than I never heard him cheer as loud as he booed that day when Brett Favre was announced. And to me, I also remember watching. It was early in the season that year. I don't even know. I think it was before they came to Green Bay for the first time after that deal, and they were playing in Minnesota, and I believe they were playing Cleveland, and they were down near the end of the game, and Favre went back and just threw like a 50, 60-yard bomb and completed the pass for a touchdown to win the game. I was watching with some friends in a bar, and I believe that the Packers had either were playing the late game or whatever. The Packers weren't on, so that was the game that was on. If I didn't know the owners of the bar, I probably would have been kicked out. I was yelling and dropping so many F-bombs at Brett Favre. I was so pissed. That I can't remember a time, and this is the great thing about sports too, is this kind of emotion where people get that upset that a business move that really has nothing to do with you, and that's what these all are. These are like things with Favre. Well, part of it was to piss off the Packer organization because he thought they screwed him over with drafting Rodgers, but things like the other thing too with the Packers this year was Aaron Jones signing with the Vikings, and a lot of people were upset about that, even though hey, he had been basically let go by the Packers, whatever. So anyway, I love this kind of stuff with the 3-2. Oh, okay. So the Florida Panthers just beat the Rangers 3-2.
Nice.
I didn't even see the Rangers score their goal, but
they did it with like 50 seconds left.
Was that what it is? Okay. So yeah, Florida takes a 3-2 series lead, and hopefully that goes 7. Because like you said, Steve, I do think that is one of the great things about hockey is like playoff hockey is just fun. It's so much more intense, I think, than like NBA basketball playoffs. And even though I enjoy the playoffs in the NBA as well, yeah, there's just something more intense about playoff hockey. So anyway, why don't we end the show here? Steve, you got any big plans for the weekend?
I am going to be a softball dad this weekend. Aaron, if I can
Nice.
throw 2 more things in before we
Sure.
close up. Number
Yeah.
1,
Yeah.
talking about heartbreak and redemption. This summer, the Pittsburgh Pirates have decided to induct both Jim Leland and Barry Bonds into their Hall of Fame in the same year. Leland is going into the Baseball Hall of Fame this summer as well. But if you ever get a chance, there is a classic spring training incident between the two of them where Bonds did not really want to participate in spring training, and Leland basically let off an expletive-laced "I'm your manager" tirade to him. And I'm interested, if you talk about emotion, to see how things are when the two of them are together in the same place at the same time. Bonds, of course, left Pittsburgh and went on his home run parade after the Pirates, and Leland went on to have much success in other cities, including other World Series championships, which he never got in Pittsburgh. So that's my 1. And number 2 is for our wonderful friend in Atlanta, talk about heartbreak with you guys with Kirk Cousins, and then they draft Michael Penix Jr. So Aaron, I'll leave it at that for tonight. Big weekend, in sports, and big weekend in life. So look forward to hanging out with you guys again in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you joining us, Steve. Charles, how about you with any plans for the weekend other than maybe resting up your voice and everything?
I'm sit around and watch, whatever baseball I can, probably hang out with the kids, just have a good time. I will definitely do at least one best ball draft. And for all you fantasy players out there, if you have not already done a best ball draft or 2, you are behind. You are already behind. Draft season has already started. Get on it. We're going to get beat by chumps like me. All right? So I will definitely be doing that. Other than that, work Saturday and then relax, catch up on some stuff. I'll have to catch up on 911. It's the season finale of that.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Bobby's going to die. I don't know. I didn't see it. Everybody else has seen it. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking.
I have to say I've never watched 911. Now, which one is that? Because
So-
don't they have a few different 911s?
Well, yeah, there's 911 and there's 911 Lone Star. But 911 was an awesome show when it was on Fox.
Okay.
It got canceled after 6th season, and ABC picked it up. So we're in like the first ABC season. It's probably going to be the last season that I will ever watch it. I think my wife pretty much at this point agrees as well because they have completely ruined the show. But it was a really, really good show where most of it was based off of like true 911 calls that had happened and stuff. I'm pretty sure that ABC's not doing that. But it was a good show. And then Lone Star, I don't really watch that one. My wife likes that, but it's got somebody big in it. I forget who.
Okay. Now it's the original 911, the one with like Jennifer Love Hewitt. Is she in there?
Yeah, she's in it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Her and Angela Bassett.
Okay. That's Angela Bassett,
yeah. It's a good show. Like when it first started out, man, it was incredible. We got hooked fast on it.
You know, the other show that's like that. My mom and I actually, back when way before I was married, and all that, we used to both love Law and Order.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started getting all the other ones. I never got into Law and Order SVU because I was like, how many sex crimes do you really have to cover before you start like rehashing old ones? Like, come on, you've been going for 20 years. Are there that many perverts, that we don't know about that you got whatever? But
Probably
the original the original cast too. People like Jerry Orbach, Fred Thompson, the original Law and Order cast was, sure, some of the people they brought in later on were fantastic, but when you look back and you watch those first couple seasons, because I stopped watching Law and Order as the cast started to turn over, but that beginning was just the masterpiece of that show. And,
absolutely.
I never really got into Law and Order. I was more of like an ER guy. That was an incredible show. And I really dug Monk. I used to watch that with my grandma. That was a great one. But other than that, 911 was just really good. We watched it like when, I think my wife saw the course. She's like, I want to watch that. I was like, yeah, it looks like it'd be cool. We watched it. I was like, all right, this is pretty cool and stuff. But other than that, I never really watched a lot of those shows. I'm more of a, Alf kind of guy.
Yeah, well, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Absolutely. Voltron.
I miss the days, and we're gonna, if somebody watches this later, they're gonna look at this and think that this is like the show where old men bitch about like how things used to be, and that's fine. You could think that, get off my lawn. But I miss the days of like good comedies.
Yep.
I want some good and I was watching. It's funny because I'm working right now on a project, a little side thing before we go here. So I'm working on, and I think Charles, you may have heard me talk about this, maybe not. I'm working on this docuseries called Becoming a Beast, where we talk to different people who are content creators and how they became that way and all this other stuff. And I'm talking to different companies, like whether Netflix and other ones, about coming on board with this, and it's almost impossible to get involved. Like you have to have the right connections and all that kind of stuff. But then today I think before I came downstairs here to get ready for the show, I was watching the NBA playoffs, and during a commercial break, they had a commercial for what was it called? MILF. Oh, go ahead. Did you know
what you're talking about? I can't remember the title of it, but I know what I saw it too.
And the commercial is like everybody needs love or something like that, and it's like MILF Love season 2 or something. And I'm like, wait a minute, this shit can get on TV, and I can't get something like even a little bit to try to get like. I was blown away looking at how much garbage is on TV right now with all the reality TV. And of course, we all know it's not reality TV. Steve, this is where I go on a rant here. And, because Charles had a rant, you've talked about a few things. Now, my rant is going to be reality TV sucks. It's not really reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
TV executives, get your heads out of your asses and actually start looking for really compelling content again. Come on. I need some good comedies here that we don't cancel right away because somebody gets offended. It's just
right.
This generation, this younger generation has ruined TV. Jerry Seinfeld, I think, said it a couple weeks ago. And I think he even said it, I think on Jimmy Fallon show or something. He went on some late night show and was talking about it. He's absolutely right. You younger kids, you college kids have ruined television. You ruined comedy. Go suck it. All right. That's anyway. That's all we got for this week. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy. Hopefully it's getting warmer. It's getting warmer where we are here, so we're going to be outside for a while this weekend, and we'll see everybody back here next week. So. And we're having problems here, so I'm gonna remove that.
All right, hour number 2, guys. So